President Donald Trump is once again at the center of attention as questions continue surrounding U.S. diplomatic efforts with Iran and the administration's domestic legislative priorities. Earlier today, President Trump stated that Iran had requested a meeting and said discussions would take place in Doha, Qatar. However, shortly afterward, Iran's foreign ministry publicly denied that claim, saying no meetings or negotiations with the United States were scheduled over the next several days. The conflicting statements have created uncertainty about whether any direct diplomatic talks are actually taking place. Reports indicate that U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and other American officials are expected to travel to Doha to meet with Qatari officials. According to those reports, Qatar and other regional partners may continue acting as intermediaries between Washington and Tehran, even if direct U.S.-Iran negotiations do not occur. The developments come after renewed military tensions in the region and continue to raise questions about the future of diplomatic efforts between the two countries. Meanwhile, attention also turned to the White House as President Trump discussed several domestic issues, including election legislation and housing policy. Speaking from the Oval Office, the president again highlighted the Republican-backed SAVE Act, calling it one of his administration's top legislative priorities. The proposal would require documentary proof of U.S. citizenship when registering to vote in federal elections. Supporters argue the measure would strengthen election security, while opponents say it could make voter registration more difficult for some eligible voters. When asked about a bipartisan housing affordability bill that recently passed Congress with broad support, President Trump suggested the measure was less significant than the SAVE Act. The housing legislation is designed to encourage new home construction, reduce certain regulatory barriers, and expand affordable housing opportunities for first-time homebuyers. Although the White House previously praised the proposal, uncertainty remains over when the president will sign the legislation. Housing affordability continues to rank among the nation's most pressing economic concerns, with many Americans facing high mortgage rates, rising home prices, and increasing rental costs. President Trump also commented on New York City mayoral nominee Zohran Mamdani, criticizing his political platform and warning against what he described as increasingly left-wing economic policies. Mamdani has defended his agenda by pointing to expanded childcare programs, tenant protections, infrastructure investments, and other initiatives aimed at reducing the cost of living. The exchange reflects the growing debate between Republicans and Democrats over the role of government in addressing affordability and economic inequality. Meanwhile, Democratic Senator Elizabeth Warren continued urging the administration to approve the bipartisan housing legislation. In a recent interview, Warren said lawmakers from both parties spent more than a year developing the proposal. According to the senator, the legislation combines dozens of measures designed to increase housing supply, lower construction costs, encourage local development, and improve affordability for both renters and first-time buyers. Warren argued that Congress has discussed rising housing costs for decades, but has struggled to produce meaningful reforms. She described the bill as one of the most significant bipartisan housing packages considered in recent years. The senator also expressed disappointment that the bill has not yet been signed into law despite receiving strong bipartisan support in both the House and Senate. Beyond housing, Warren criticized the administration's broader economic policies, arguing that many families continue facing higher prices for groceries, healthcare, utilities, and housing. She also questioned whether senior economic advisors are providing the president with accurate assessments of current economic conditions, saying policymakers should base decisions on objective economic data. Looking ahead, Warren argued that future congressional elections could significantly influence legislative priorities. She said Democratic control of Congress would allow lawmakers to pursue different economic policies, increase congressional oversight, and advance legislation focused on healthcare, infrastructure, scientific research, and consumer affordability. Republicans, however, maintain that their policies are aimed at strengthening the economy, improving election security, reducing government regulation, and encouraging long-term economic growth. As debates continue over foreign policy, election legislation, housing affordability, and the economy, both parties are expected to make these issues central themes heading into the next election cycle. With Congress continuing work on several major legislative proposals and diplomatic tensions remaining high overseas, the coming weeks could prove important for both domestic policy and international relations. You're listening to our National Affairs Bulletin. Thank you for listening, and stay tuned for more national and international news throughout the day.